Hey folks, today we're going to be talking solar and inverters. Now I've had a lot of questions about the Overlander Solar Package that Jayco offers on their fifth wheels. And so my goal today is to show you what that looks like and encompasses specifically here on my Pinnacle. This is the 37 MDQS. Now to be clear, Jayco may change the solar option from time to time, as they already have done even since I took delivery of my Pinnacle. This came off the line June 2021. But essentially, I'll be talking about the factory installed solar option that you can get from Jayco. And this is going to apply to the Pinnacle and the Northpoint and possibly some of the other brands that Jayco offers. And on that note, speaking of the solar package, let me just clear up an issue that's kind of confusing concerning the inverter. It's my understanding when you purchase the Pinnacle or the Northpoint and you order it with the residential refrigerator, you're going to get an inverter regardless of whether you also select the solar package, right? Because if you get that residential refrigerator, you need the inverter to power that residential refrigerator when you're disconnected from shore power. And so that inverter comes with the residential refrigerator essentially and is separate from the solar package. In other words, my Pinnacle came with the 1000 watt Xantrex Freedom inverter, but I would have gotten that same inverter with or without the solar package because it's necessary to power the residential refrigerator off the grid. So that's my understanding, but just to be clear, RV manufacturers are constantly changing features and options on their units just nonstop. And so by the time you're watching this, it's very possible that Jayco may have changed some of the solar packages and the options. So if that's the case, definitely let me know by leaving a comment below. I think it'd be really helpful for folks watching this to know what some of those latest changes are to the solar packages offered by Jayco. And just to give you an idea of some of these changes, recently I read about Jayco offering an extreme Overlander solar package, which, get this, includes 1200 watts of solar on the roof, 600 amp hours of lithium batteries, a 3000 watt inverter, and possibly a 12 volt air conditioner in the bedroom. Now I have yet to see this in the wild on a Jayco fifth wheel, but it is on their website in a press release dated back to September 2021. So again, today I'm going to be showing you what's in my build, but this stuff can change all the time. All right, so to start, let me show you what all the individual components look like. First up is going to be the solar panel on the roof. And you can see it comes from Go Power. It's a 190 watt solar panel, which is actually a pretty large panel for just a single one. It's almost 30 inches across and I think almost 60 inches long there. So pretty large panel. But this is everything that Jayco installs from the factory. You can see they use standard solar wiring there for all the connections. And then of course they use the die core to seal up all the penetrations there. Now when I ordered mine, I could have gotten actually 2 of these solar panels. I opted for just a single one because of the way I use my RV. But it'd be really easy now that all this is in place to add more solar panels in the future if I ever wanted to. The second component is going to be the solar charge controller. You can see they've mounted it just above the BM Pro display here. It's also made by Go Power. This is the 30 amp PWM solar controller. It's a pretty basic model. In fact, I had this exact same controller on a portable solar kit that I reviewed previously from Go Power. But the goal of the solar charge controller is to take the energy from the solar panels and interpret it in a meaningful and safe way and then send that to the battery bank to recharge it. It's a pretty basic one here. If you hit the B button, it's kind of like scrolling through the different screens that it can show you here. And one thing that's a little bit confusing, I'll just point out, is you'll notice it says AGM. I actually have a lithium battery bank, but this particular controller does not have a lithium setting. It just has lead acid or AGM. But Go Power tells me that the AGM setting is the correct one for lithium as far as how it sends that energy to the battery bank. So you want to make sure that's set right for your unit. If you get it from the factory and you've got a lead acid battery bank from your dealer that they supply, then you'll want to change this over to AGM if you switch to lithium batteries eventually. So as far as what you actually get with Jayco's solar package, that's essentially it on my unit at least. It's just the solar panel on the roof and then the solar charge controller. Now 2 related things I'll point out are in the wet bay, they do give you this solar port for a portable solar panel if you want to plug in there. But I am pretty sure that they put that on all the units, not just the ones with the solar package. Certainly let me know if you're watching this and you've got a Pinnacle or Northpoint. Let me know if you've got that solar port on your unit, but I'm pretty sure that comes standard, as well as the actual wiring for the solar package. I'm pretty sure the actual wires themselves are in all the units, even if you don't have the solar package. And let me also point out that Jayco doesn't ship the fifth wheel with batteries, but rather that's something that the dealer where I purchased it actually installed. And of course, most dealers just put 2 deep cycle lead acid batteries. Hopefully this will start to change in the upcoming years, and manufacturers will start putting in lithium batteries or offering them at least as an option from the factory. And maybe even dealers will start to offer them as options too. But for me personally, I had to upgrade to these lithium batteries myself. And the way I use it, I opted for just a humble bank of 2 100 amp hour batteries for a total of 200 amp hours. But again, this is separate from the Jayco solar package, yet it's really an integral part to achieve more of the potential of the solar system in many ways. I mean, you can certainly charge lead acid batteries with solar panels. There's no issues there. But remember, lead acid batteries should only be discharged down to a threshold of 50%. And so typically from a dealer, you're going to get lead acid batteries in the 60 to 80 amp hour range. So even with 2 of them, you're still only getting 60 to 80 amp hours of actual use out of that battery bank. And so that's why a lot of folks upgrade to lithium, given that you get full access to all the amp hours, plus better charging and discharge characteristics, just to name a few. And that's kind of another video in itself, but just wanted to highlight that you'll probably want to incorporate lithium batteries in your setup. In fact, I'd almost do lithium batteries first before I expand and go to solar. But on that note, let me also show you the Xantrex inverter that Jayco ships with the Pinnacle and the North Point. It's up here in the basement storage, kind of mounted to the underside of the floor deck above. And it's a basic 1000 watt inverter, and it's intended mainly to power the refrigerator when you're not plugged into shore power. So this is particularly important to keep your fridge cold while you're on the road driving by getting power through the 12 volt battery bank. And so the inverter basically converts the 12 volt DC power from your battery to 120 volt AC power that the fridge requires. Now, before I bought my Jayco, as I was researching both the North Point and the Pinnacle, one of the questions I had was, does Jayco wire in any additional outlets to the inverter beyond the refrigerator? Let's say you're on the road, you don't have shore power, and you want to watch some TV, or maybe you want to plug in your laptop to charge. Are there any other outlets in the coach that are wired into the inverter? And so as I visited dealers and called dealers and tried to get an answer to that question, most of them told me no. The refrigerator is the only thing that's wired into the inverter, and there's no other outlets. But yet some forums online where I would read from owners, and granted these were different model years, different floor plans, but they would suggest, oh yeah, there's a couple outlets here and there that are wired into the inverter. So I really didn't know going into it if I would have any additional outlets that were wired into the inverter. But I've got good news to report today. Again, mine is a 2021 Pinnacle. It came off the line June 2021, and there's actually quite a few outlets that are wired into the inverter. So I'll demonstrate that next. So you can see I've got my shore power disconnected from the coach, and the way the Xantrex inverter is designed to function is that as soon as it detects a loss of shore power, it's going to automatically take over and then supply 120 volts to the outlets that it's wired into. And that should happen automatically. You shouldn't have to go in here and mess with any settings. This is kind of like a remote inside that you can look at. In fact, you could hit this power button all day long and nothing happens there. So you don't have to worry about someone, walking by and bumping a button. But it should happen automatically. I think there was one time where the inverter did not come on for me automatically when I disconnected shore power, and it had to do something with some maintenance I had been doing on the system and some weird order that things got powered on. And so to reset it, all I had to do was disconnect the battery bank and then reconnect the battery bank, just the disconnect, and then the inverter kicked right on. So if that ever happens to you, don't panic. Just turn off your battery bank, turn it back on. The inverter should come back running. But you can see right now, it's indicating that it is powering off the battery, supplying 120 volt power. Of course, there's nothing running right now. We don't have the fridge running at all, so that's why it's showing 0 watts. Now, as far as which outlets are actually wired to the inverter, it's been a while since I last checked. And so today I'm just going to pull out this electrical tester. It's going to give us a visual indication of which outlets are still hot with the inverter running. And so I'm going to try to hit most of them. I'll start up here because I'm pretty sure this one above the TV is still hot and wired to the inverter. Yep, so you can see this one's still hot. Check the outlet directly below it. Yep, that one's still hot. This is where I've got my Blu-ray DVD player plugged in. All right, how about the outlet directly below the overhead storage? Okay, so this one's not hot. So this one's on a separate circuit. And then let's check the TV, which I'm pretty sure is. So the TV, you can see, has got an outlet down here that's wired in. So I'm going to pull the TV temporarily and then reach down here. If I can get it. There we go. So this one is still hot. Now there's also an outlet directly next to it that's unused. That's got a, looks like a double, yeah, it's a double outlet. Check that one as well. Okay, so that one's not hot. So that's on a separate circuit. I'm not sure what that is actually. That runs, it looks like to, the Romex goes into the cabinetry. So I'm not actually sure what that one is for there. All right, so we've got the TV that's hot, that outlet, and the one up top here so far. Let's check back here next to the couch, see if this one's still hot. So nope, this one's not wired in, and it's gonna be the same story on the other side there. How about on the kitchen island? I'm guessing no, this is probably wired into the GFI circuit. Yep, so no power there. What else? We got in the kitchen, another outlet up here. Try that one. Nope, no power up there. Okay, and then in the family room, so these chairs have an outlet back there. I'll just test them with the switches on here. So you can see those are not wired in either. Otherwise, they would be turning on the lights here. So basically in this main living space area so far, we've got just the TV down below, the outlet that's in the TV compartment, and then the two outlets that are up top there where the Blu-ray player is plugged into. And of course we've got our refrigerator. You can see we've got the cooling turned off, but you can see it is illuminated there that it's getting power. Let's hop in here to the mid bunk though and just see. I don't think any of these are wired in, but we'll just check real quick. Yep, so nothing down there. Let me check up top here. There's some outlets up in here. Yeah, so no power up here either. No surprise. Pretty sure this one's part of that same circuit. Yeah, so nothing right there as well. So no power in the mid bunk, but let's go up to the upper deck and see if we've got any power. I know we've got power in the bedroom. Now here in the loft area up top, we do have an outlet up here. I don't think this one is connected in. Nope, no power up here. And then in the bathroom, this is actually going to be our main GFI outlet here. And so this one obviously is not powered on because that's a separate circuit there. But in the bedroom here, I know we've got several, and a lot of these are labeled actually here. So you can see that little white label down there that Jayco puts on some of them. Not all of them, but some of the outlets anyway. So this one you can see is lit up. So that one's still hot. And then there should be one on the other side here. Or actually it's in the closet. It would have been nice if Jayco put another outlet down there, but they actually put this one in the closet here, and it's all the way in the back here. You can see it's got a sticker on it. So that one's hot still. And then there's a couple more outlets. So we've got one for the TV that's kind of hidden back there behind the TV. And you can see actually the TV has that standby light lit up. So we know the TV outlet is powered on, so you can watch TV here in the bedroom. And then there's also an outlet down here. Let's check this one. All right, so that one's not hot. So here in the bedroom, we've got three outlets. We've got one, and then two in the closet, and then three on the TV. And then if we go back to the living space, we've got a total of, we've got 4 is the refrigerator, and then we've got 5 and 6. There were 2 of them up here, and then 7 the TV down below here. So we've got a total of 7 outlets that are wired into the inverter. And again, this is in my floor plan, the 37 MDQS. So in summary, again, there's 7 outlets that are wired into the inverter, which remember is a 1,000 watt inverter. Now it's my understanding the refrigerator, when it's at full throttle, it's going to consume a maximum of about 700 watts. I have not tested that, but from what I've read, that seems to be typical for a residential refrigerator. So the question is, what does that leave us with capacity-wise? So if we take 1,000 watts minus 700, that gives us 300 watts of extra capacity that we can use for other things while the refrigerator is running if it's at full throttle. So you're gonna have no problem if you wanna charge a laptop or watch TV, right? There's plenty of bandwidth in that 300 watts. However, if you're gonna use a toaster oven or a microwave, that's just not gonna happen because you need more capacity in order to run that much. But again, charging a laptop, watching TV, no problem at all. Now on that note, sometimes I've had the question asked, and this is one I've wondered myself, can you swap out the 1,000 watt inverter that Jayco installs with a more powerful, maybe a 3,000 watt inverter, right? Since all the wiring is there, is it plug and play? Can you just swap it out? And the answer is kind of. I mean, the wiring is definitely there. The 120 volt wiring is there for sure. But the wires that run between the inverter and the battery bank have to be a specific gauge, a specific thickness, in order to support all that consumption going to the inverter. And so naturally, Jayco is going to put the wires that are rated for that 1000 watt Xantrex inverter that they install. They're not going to go overboard and install, thicker gauge wires that are going to support a 3000 watt inverter, right? So if you do want to upgrade the inverter, it is possible. You're going to have to replace the cables running between the inverter and your battery bank with a thicker gauge wire to support the heavier duty 3000 watt inverter. So basically, the larger inverter you install, the thicker the gauge of the wires need to be that run between the inverter and your battery bank, which, by the way, that should be a very short distance, which is why Jayco put that inverter in that basement storage right on the other side of that battery bank. You want to keep that distance as short as possible, again, all having to do with the gauge and thickness of the wire. So it's definitely possible to swap it out with the larger inverter if you wanted to do so, but just be prepared that you're going to have to swap out the 12 volt cables running between the inverter and the battery bank, which is not a big deal, not a big expense. You just want to make sure you match up that gauge and size it properly to support the larger inverter. All right, so let me close the video by answering two more questions. First one is, should you get the factory installed solar package from Jayco, or should you do it yourself later? And my thoughts on that, it seems like it's a fairly priced upgrade. At least when I ordered my Pinnacle, I priced out the individual components to see what it would cost for me to add those things later myself. And it seemed like Jayco was pricing it out fairly, especially with the time involved to install that. And so I opted to have that basic solar package done ahead of time. I mean, it's done for you, so you don't have to worry about doing it later. Now, in my case, I opted for just one solar panel. I can easily come back and add a second solar panel if I want later. That was something that I was willing to do, but to have all that done ahead of time for the price, it seems like it's a fair value. And the second question, this is really the big one. What kind of freedom or benefits do you get when you order the solar package that's factory installed from Jayco? I mean, when you hear solar, you might be thinking about people on YouTube that live in their rigs full time, and they go out in the middle of nowhere and boondock and stay off the grid for, days and maybe weeks at a time. And so you might be thinking about that with solar, right? But when you only have one 190 watt solar panel, even if you had two of them, it's just not going to be enough for you to support the consumption that the residential refrigerator is going to consume, right? So that's out of the question as far as boondocking with just a single solar panel. You probably are going to need 3-4 solar panels, 600, 700 watts of solar on your roof at minimum just to support the residential refrigerator. Not to mention a battery bank that's probably at least 400 amp hours. So right now I've just got 190 watts of solar on the roof and then a 200 amp hour battery bank. So that is not going to enable me to boondock and stay off the grid with that residential fridge running. Now, sure, if you don't want to run the fridge, you can run all your other 12 volt stuff, all your lights and everything, and that might be enough for me to kind of get by for a considerable amount of time with a 200 amp hour, battery bank and that solar trickle charging it throughout the day. But as far as, running off the grid with the residential refrigerator, it's just not going to happen. So again, all that to say, getting 1 or 2 solar panels installed from the factory, it's probably not going to enable you to run off the grid endlessly, especially with a residential refrigerator, right? But the benefits that I'm thinking of are really twofold. And the first would be if you keep your RV at a storage lot that's uncovered perhaps, and you don't want to disconnect your battery because maybe you want to monitor it remotely through the BM Pro system and you've got a 4G connection through the hotspot, right? And so then you've got those solar panels on the roof, maybe 1 or 2, that are constantly trickle charging and topping off your battery to keep everything alive so that you can remotely monitor it without shore power. So that's kind of a nice benefit. And then the second one would be just that when you're driving on travel days between campsites, maybe you've got a long travel day, 7, 8, 9 hours, then at least that residential refrigerator doesn't take as much away from your battery bank by the end of the day, because all day long while you're driving, those solar panels are, again, trickle charging slowly and keeping that battery probably not quite topped off, but at least not, depleting it as much as it would if you didn't have the solar panels on the roof. So really it's about setting your expectations properly. Getting 1 or 2 solar panels installed from the factory. It's not so much about going off the grid for an extended period of time, but really more about just keeping your batteries topped off. All right, well, I hope this video was helpful in answering some of the questions you may have had at least, but hey, if you've got another unanswered question or even a helpful tip on this topic, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching.